Freedom is
Hey guys, let's jump straight in and take a look at 4 inspirational men who led slave resistance movements. You may have heard the song by D-Smoke and Snoop Dogg called Gaspar Yanga, but who was the man that the song is named after? He was an Afro-Mexican slave resistance leader who established one of the first free black settlements in the Americas. Born around 1545 in Gabon, Gaspar Yanga was enslaved and put to work on the sugar plantations in Veracruz in Mexico. In 1570, Gaspar Yanga and a group of fellow enslaved Africans escaped and formed a palenque, a settlement of free black people which remained for almost 40 years. In 1609, the Spanish authorities sent armed forces to destroy the palenque, but were defeated by Yanga and his followers. Yanga and the authorities came to an agreement whereby he and his people would be allowed to remain free, and their settlement would be acknowledged as a legal entity governed by them. In 1618, the town San Lorenzo de los Negros was established, later renamed Yanga in his honor, and in 1871, Gaspar Yanga was declared a Mexican national hero. Sometimes referred to as the Black Napoleon, Toussaint Louverture was the leader of the Haitian Revolution, the only successful slave revolt in modern history to found an independent state, the nation of Haiti. Toussaint was born into slavery in 1743 on modern-day Haiti, which at the time was the French colony of Saint-Dominique. He was fiercely intelligent, trilingual, a skilled horseman, and had an expert knowledge of the medicinal value of plants. Inspired by the French Revolution, Toussaint joined the slave insurgency in Saint-Dominique and quickly rose to become one of the leaders of the movement. From 1794 to 1802, he was the dominant political and military leader in the French colony, effectively ruling it as an independent state. In 1802, the French military general Napoleon sent forces to capture and imprison Toussaint Louverture, who died of pneumonia imprisoned in France in 1803. 1 year later, Haiti gained its independence under the leadership of Jean-Jacques Dessalines, signaling the first country in modern history to be established by a slave revolt. Benkos Biohó was an Afro-Colombian slave resistance leader and founder of the free black settlement San Basilio de Palenque. He was born in the late 16th century on an archipelago island off of Guinea-Bissau in West Africa. Benkos was kidnapped at a young age and trafficked to Colombia, specifically to the major slave trading port of Cartagena de Indias. Appalled by the cruel treatment endured by enslaved Africans working on plantations, Benkos and a small group of fellow slaves escaped and formed the settlement of San Basilio de Palenque. Further enslaved Africans escaped to the Palenque over the years. They communicated with each other using drums and braided maps of escape routes into their hair, smuggling seeds within those braids to cultivate once they arrived and use for food. There were several attempts by the Spanish authorities to destroy the Palenque, which were continually thwarted by the free black settlers. Eventually, the Spanish offered Benkos Biohó a treaty by which they agreed to leave the settlement alone if Benkos agreed not to accept any more runaway slaves. Benkos signed the treaty, but the Spanish betrayed him by capturing and executing him. However, San Basilio de Palenque remains to this day and has fiercely held on to its African language and culture. The Brazilian resistance leader Zumbi was the last king of the Quilombo dos Palmares, a self-sustaining kingdom of free black and indigenous people, many of whom had escaped from nearby plantations. It was formed in 1605, and Zumbi was born in the settlement itself 50 years later. At its height, there were over 30,000 residents split across 11 towns. When the reigning king of the Palmares, Zumbi's uncle, Ganga Zumba, considered making an agreement with the Portuguese authorities, Zumbi was dismayed. He refused to accept freedom for the Palmares, while millions of Africans in Brazil remained enslaved. Zumbi killed his uncle and assumed the kingship of the Palmares, rejecting all of the offers of a treaty by the Portuguese. He reigned for 15 years until 1694, when the Portuguese authorities launched an attack on the settlement. After a long, drawn-out series of battles, Zumbi was killed in 1695. He became a symbol of resistance against Portuguese colonial rule, and every year November the 20th is celebrated as Afro-Brazilian Consciousness Day to honour Zumbi and mark the anniversary of his death. And there we have it! If you liked that, then check out my video on inspirational women who led slave resistance movements. And don't forget that I've made Black history videos on Mexico, Haiti, Colombia and Brazil, in which all of the aforementioned people feature, so check those out too. I'll see you in the next video.
Freedom.